The Jason Samel interview.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to All That Jam, where music has no limits. And we are joined today by Jay Samel. Jay, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you today?
So good. So good. So, Jay, you do a lot of different things. You're an activist. You help manage music festivals and produce those. We're here today to talk primarily about your music. And I'm so excited because you recently released a fantastic song and video in celebration of summer solstice, International Yoga Day. It's called Heads Bow Down. And the first second I heard it, I just fell in love with it. So I'm wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and how that song came to be.
Yeah, sure. So, a little bit about myself. Yeah, I'm a musician, singer, songwriter. I've been playing, a bunch of different instruments most of my life. Heads Bowed Down. It's my first single that I'm coming out with. I've come out with some other songs in the past, but they were like part of some compilations that I produced. And in the past, I had always written music and talked about things that had nothing to do with me. I always shine lights on other things, trying to keep the light off me, sort of, scared to share almost. And then yoga kind of hit my life. And during the pandemic, I was having a really hard time. I fell into, a really deep depression and realized I had all this trauma from childhood that had finally come out to me during the pandemic, and I fell into a really tough depression. And that depression was like almost like end of life type stuff. And then one day I just kind of down at the beach at a beach in this place called Seacliff, which is in the music video. Actually, that same beach is pictured in the video. I kind of had like a spiritual awakening, like right at where like sort of I felt like my life was kind of ending and like was over. I had a huge spiritual awakening that I kind of just awoke into this world of like, I wanted to move and breathe all of a sudden, and I had no idea why. And I started doing that on the beach a bunch, and it made me happier than I've ever been. That's a really long story short. Is I started going down to the beach every day in a really deep depression. Started moving my arms up and then bringing them down on a breath in and breath out. And just from doing that alone, I started to have a massive smile on my face, and I couldn't get enough of that. And I came back every single day to get that smile back on my face. It became my new antidepressant or anti-anxiety or whatever the heck I needed. It was like everything I needed was right there. And I started falling in love with everything and everyone. And it was at a time when I was sleeping on the couch. My marriage was about to break. My marriage was pretty broken, like a lot of other people went through during the pandemic. And then I found yoga, and me and my wife started practicing yoga together. After I found it, she was doing it for a while before that, but then I joined up and we started doing it all the time together. And like what went from like sleeping on the couch, like maybe a month later to be like madly in love with each other again. And like that's kind of what brought about this song was like, it's like an ode to love. It's an ode to my wife. It's an ode to yoga and the love that it could bring into your life. And that's kind of what that became for me. And during the pandemic, I've been friends with, I know you guys interviewed Scott Sharrard recently, right?
Yeah.
He's a longtime buddy of mine. I love him. He's been a longtime client of mine. As you said, I do a number of things. I've been helping him out with insurance for a long time. And during the pandemic, I was talking to him about some insurance stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, like I have this song I want to write about this experience that I've been going through. And the next thing you know, I'm in songwriting lessons with Scott Sharrard. And the next thing I know, he's producing this song, and Marco Benevento's in it, and Brett Bass and Graham Hawthorne and Leslie and like Jason Crosby, who like, I'm like, these are people I talk about bowing down, man. these are like cats that I'm a deadhead, you know, like I'm a deadhead, I'm a fish head. Allman's, Phil, Jackson Browne was on the first album I ever produced, and like Jay Crosby's playing with him all the time now, and so is Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm bowing down to these people all my life, and then all of a sudden they're backing me up. I'm like, whoa. And like that's it. And like that was like 3 years ago, and the rest is kind of history, man.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I have to say, even before you just kind of mentioned it, watching the video, it is all about the love. I mean, it's impossible not to feel that, even if, you know, not having that complete story yet. When I watched the video, that's kind of what drew me in, because it's very relatable, I think, to a lot of different kinds of relationships and our own relationship with ourselves. So, you know, you really got something there. Now, not to take away from this most recent release, but I did do a little searching around online. You had referenced the music you had put out in the past. You had done some more activism focused, I think, recording work a couple years ago, a song about fracking, becoming an activist with DJ Logic. So you do have a little bit of a history, right, of kind of getting into this jam band space. It's amazing. What was that like to work with him?
Yeah, Logic has been great. I've been working with Jason Keebler, DJ Logic. I've been working with him for a very long time. I started working with DJ Logic actually during the Occupy Wall Street movement, which was sort of when I got into activism, was during the Occupy movement. And that's when I produced my first album, which was called Occupy This Album, which was with Jackson Browne and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I didn't know any of these cats before this album, by the way. I'd never produced a single thing. And all of a sudden, Jackson Browne, I'm like sitting there talking on the phone with Jackson Browne about his song that's going to be on the album and what style I wanted to have in the background of the drums. I'm like, what is going on here? And then Yoko Ono and all these other cats were on it. And going back to the jam scene, right? So that was my first sort of song, which was called Smile, and it was on that album. And I don't know if you got to listen to that one at all, but that one was with Jeff Mattson. I don't know if you know Jeff, but Jeff is the lead guitar player of Dark Star Orchestra for so many years now, right? The Zen Tricksters, right? He was part of them too. So yeah, Jeff played on my first one, and then the second one was the fracking album that I produced to raise awareness about fracking with Bonnie Raitt and Pete Seeger. And Arlo Guthrie and Michael Franti was on there. Marco Benevento made an awesome song on there with Dave Dreiwitz of Ween. And you know how like they're both in, you know, both of them are in J-Rad together, and they've always like played together in I think the Marco Benevento trio, they used to jam together. And they were on that album together. The weirdest and coolest and funkiest song on that album for sure. It's so Dave and so Marco. And yeah, I got to work with freaking Logic and the person who produced the song. I don't know if you watched the music video for that, but the person who produced that song was Pete Levin.
Okay, I did watch the video. Yeah, I think I found it on YouTube, and honestly, it's so it gets in there, you know, about wanting to be an activist, just all these things. Like it really it's not even so much catchy. I think it just resonates. So the energy that you bring,
it works. Thank you.
Works. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think that was mostly a message to, I think it was like at a time when like, I sort of wasn't sure if my kids should ever become an activist. I was like very confused of whether that's a good path for them or not. But like, there was something about me that like, you know what? No, I want to let them know that I think this activism stuff, it's a good thing. And I just wanted to send that message to my kids. And it became one of their favorite songs. So that makes me really happy.
That's amazing.
You kind of got to have a little bit of a thick skin there to be an activist, huh?
And that's kind of what I mean by it. Yeah. Yeah. It's very trying. And I was back in the Occupy movement, I was, and during when I was like hailing against the fracking industry, it takes up a lot of your energy. It takes up a lot of your life. It's not an easy life. And the people who do it out there all the time, like I have an immense amount of respect for them. It's really tough. So like, I want my kids to do it. Like, yeah, I want them to do it, but have something else a little bit maybe to do also to like balance things out a little bit.
Right.
Hopefully they practice some yoga, you know?
Is there an organization that you work with or that you would send people to discover a little more about that?
About fracking?
The fracking and what they can do?
Yeah. What people can do, yeah,
You weren't ready
well,
for that question. I got it. I get you weren't
no,
ready for that.
New Yorkers against fracking. Renee Vogelslang is look up the activist Renee Vogelslang. She is awesome. Frack Action is a great network in New York State. There's some great organizations, Frack Free in Dimock, Pennsylvania. There's a whole bunch. There's so many organizations out there that are working against fracking. It was much more vocal in the state of New York at the time I came out with the album, because we were working on trying to get it banned in New York. And there were a lot of organizations at the time in New York who were working on it, but then we accomplished it, right? So now there is no fracking allowed in New York. But there's a lot of great organizations still working on it in Pennsylvania, California, Oklahoma. Definitely people should research it and definitely get involved for sure.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So I want to dig in just a little bit to your background, because you mentioned, some of the bands that you love that are important to you. And I'll mention too, Kevin is from Baltimore. He lives there. I'm a Jersey girl originally. I live in Colorado now, but coming up in that part of the country, many decades ago now, there was so much music. I'd love to know how you kind of got into the scene, and kind of what that has done for you in your life.
Great question. Really good question. And I was actually thinking about that and pondering on that earlier. And I wrote about that in a Relix Magazine article, in sort of what the jam scene did for my life. And well, first of all, it brings me back to my cousin Saul, right? So my cousin Saul, God rest his soul, he passed away a few years ago. He got me into him and my cousin Bill out in Berkeley, California. Hi, Bill. He got me into the Grateful Dead, and it was really my cousin who would just constantly talk to me about every single one of his 500 cassettes that he owned. And he had to tell me everything there was to know about every show and every riff and like everything there was to know about Jerry. And I never really got into them much when I was younger, and he talked to me about that. It actually got annoying at one point in time. I was like, dude, I'm never listening to this stuff. It's so weird. And then, and I started listening to it a little bit, but I'll never, and I'm sure you guys, I'm sure you'll never forget the day Jerry passed away, right? But I'll never forget the moment that it was announced on 97.5 Walk FM on Long Island while I was working at Cheap John's, a discount store. I was in the stock room and I was with my buddy Lou Marisi, who always wore Grateful Dead t-shirts. And he was putting stock away up on a ladder, and they came up and they announced it. And like I heard it and I was like, oh no, Jerry died. And he came down from the ladder and he got on the floor and started pounding his fists into the ground and hysterical crying. And from that day forward, I listened to every single tape I can get my hands on. And I'm like, I had to figure out why this moved people so much. And then started going to shows, sadly, after Jerry died, right? And the Rat Dog and the Phil and Friends and all that stuff, and went to as many iterations of that as I could possibly get my hands on, and eventually got into Fish. I'm a very spiritual person, so the answer to your question kind of goes way back into spirituality and goes way back even into my trauma, right? So when I was child, I was sent from one school to another. I was abused in residential treatment centers that I went to. I never felt safe, and I never felt like I had community. And what I discovered in the rave scene when I was 16 and 17 was the same thing at 18 years old that I discovered in the Grateful Dead scene and the Fish scene, was this and the same thing that now that thank goodness I found in yoga, right? I have all of these amazing, loving, peaceful, spiritual, kind people who want to take care of their brother that's, you know, tripping their face off next to them, and like, oh, it's cool, man. You need a hug, man. And like, they're right there for you. And like, or you're sad about something and they just see it in your eyes, and like they want to know and they want to help. And like, that's what the Dead scene, and that's what the Fish scene, and that's what the Jam scene, and that's what the Bonnaroo and the Mountain Jams and thank God Ken Hayes Gathering of the Vibes, and all of these festivals did for me. Every single time I went to them, it was just like, it felt like I was home. It felt like I had community. It felt like I had love surrounding me and abound, and that was so beautiful to me.
Wow. I think that so many of us can take pieces of our own story and trace it back in some way to what you were just saying, which is safety and just feeling a part of something good. You know, it's not perfect. It's not, it's still a microcosm of everyday life. But when people bring to it is a love that I think does transcend even things like age or, you know, other personal backgrounds. So that's pretty amazing that you were able to find that not only once, but in multiple kind of facets of the community.
Yeah.
Almost a judgment-free zone.
I keep coming back to like those places of love. It's like anywhere I could find an abundance of love, that's what keeps drawing me in. What were you saying, man?
I said it's a judgment-free zone. That's what I found when I was young and discovered the Grateful Dead and going there. That nobody cared what happened to you or where you came from. You were there, they were there. Hey, let's listen to the music.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone was always I love hugs. I'm a big hugger. Everybody was always willing to give you a hug. You know, like
right.
Yeah, it was even like the burly, like huge, like biker looking dudes who were like so scary, like, hey man, you okay? I'm like, this is cool. Like nobody cares about whoever or where you came from. Like you said, it's so beautiful. Yeah.
For sure. So I got to show you, I keep this bumper sticker right up by my desk when I'm working. It's my favorite.
I love it. I want it. I'm going to look that one up for sure.
I'll get you one. Now, so it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, that there are these moments, whether it's something happening in the world at large, you know, societally, or in the case of Heads Bound Down personally, that kind of gets you moving, right? Thinking about the music. Is that how it works for you? Meaning, are you kind of drawn to produce and write and create at specific moments in time, or are you always working on things?
Wow. I've never been asked that question, and I've never reflected on that. So I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I'm drawn to write when like events happen, when things happen that like that I become impassioned by.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, I think I've been a poet my whole life. I've been writing poetry since I could write. I've been writing poetry. And anytime I'd sit down to write a poem, it was always when I was upset or hurt or angry about something out in either in here or out in the world, something I saw on TV. Like, I mean, I've written so many political poems. It makes me sick. So many poems about, you know, equality and things of that nature. Yeah, I am. Thank you for bringing that up. It's when I'm triggered is like the easiest way to put it.
Sure.
It's when I'm triggered. When I get triggered by something, I have to write.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take me anything to write. It just, every single time I become triggered, I sit down and the words pour out of me in about 5-10 minutes, and then I edit down for like a year.
So you mentioned earlier that the new song is, you know, part of your newfound yoga experience and out of COVID and all that. Also, it's a very more personal thing. Was the process different with doing that, or was it the same? It's all just going to come out and then I'm going to edit and cut 50% and whatever else.
It was so different because of Scott. It was so different because of Scott. He is an incredible songwriter. He is an incredible teacher. Just freaking genius of a man. I know. I think he right. He helped Gregg write one of Gregg's last Grammy nominated song. He co-wrote with Gregg. But it was such a process. I learned a process with Scott that I never had before. I never actually edited really before all that much. But like, I mean, we worked on writing. Like once I wrote the words for the song and had the basic chord progression for the song, we rewrote the song together. I don't know, like probably like 10 times over like 15 or 20 sessions. So it was the first time I ever really worked and put a lot of effort and like everything musically that I could and my knowledge into a song. And I don't know what the process will be on the next one yet. I have no idea. I don't really, I don't know when it's going to come. I know it's coming, it's brewing, and I know it has something to do with yoga and it has something to do with hip hop it's like a folky, hip hop-ish kirtan. I don't know if you guys know what kirtan music, but it's like weird funky yoga music that's like chanting. So I've been hearing it inside. It's going to come out soon.
I love it.
So you have your song that you worked on with Scott. You have this, I guess it's pretty solid in what its form was. How does it work that you call up Marco and you bring Jason in? Do you just play him the song and say, find your place on it? Or did you have something specifically in mind for them when they walked in the door?
No, I definitely had something specifically in mind for each of them when they walked through the door. I knew I wanted Marco on some form of keys, and I definitely wanted organ in there. I knew I wanted like a whirly, a Wurlitzer type thing sound in there. Graham Hawthorne, he's an amazing drummer. I appreciate him so much. He's worked with like the best of the best, really has. And like, I'll never forget what I did with Graham. I had my they had sent me a beat. They're like, "Oh, how does this beat work?" And I'm like, I wasn't feeling it. Like that, definitely not the style. And I went into my phone and I put a beatbox. I beatboxed into my phone because I'm a beatboxer. I learned beatbox like that back in the old hip hop days. And I beatboxed the beat that you hear on the song into my phone. And he like in 2 seconds, he's like, you mean this? And he sends it back to me. And like that was done. And Jay Crosby plays fiddle. Jay Crosby plays keyboards, right? He plays Jackson Browne's keyboard player now. He also played an amazing guitar player. So when it came time to him, like I knew I needed a fiddle on there, and it just fit in. And Leslie, I didn't direct for a second. I would never dare to direct Leslie's vocals. Whatever Leslie wants, like please just give it to me.
Awesome.
It's kind of how that came together.
That's so beautiful. I mean, I would think that for them too, this is a really great kind of project because it's a single song with such a pure message that I would think this is really something that they enjoy also, because it probably is a little bit different than, when they're going into the studio to maybe make an album and then they're going to tour around that. There's different levels of, I don't want to say pressure, but considerations, right?
Yeah.
For music, depending on kind of what the eventual like outcome is going to be. So I feel like it's got to be super freeing for them to be able to do something like this with you.
I'll definitely always say for this one, like I got really, really lucky. Right. Yeah. Like when does Scott Sharrard have the time to sit down for months and write a song with you? When does Marco Benevento have the time that he's not touring, that he could sit there and just go in the studio and play on Jason Samel, whose track? Right. Like it took the pandemic for this to happen. This song was also another really cool part about it, right? This song was recorded in like 5 different studios because the track was sent from one studio to the other studio to the other studio, and then finally edited together by like genius Charlie Martinez with Scott's direction. So it was, and it was certainly, you said freer. It was definitively easier for them to make a decision to be on this song, knowing that there would be no touring involved, and that there's no way Jason's ever gonna be able to get together, or maybe get together this super group on stage. Who knows?
Yeah, well, who knows? So let's manifest something right now. Who are some folks that you would, like, all things being equal, right, in the future, who would you love to collaborate with? I mean, you got a roster, like a starting lineup like crazy already, but like, are there people out there that you just really think to yourself, man, it would be so amazing to work with them perhaps someday on a project?
Oh yeah, Mike Gordon. Mike Gordon, definitely. I've been wanting to work with Bob Weir since like the beginning of time. I was talking to Bob Weir's manager, Matt Bush, at I don't know if he's still managing him, but Matt Bush back in the time of Occupy, and we were talking about getting Bob to go into the studio to record. This is what Bob was going to record for that album. He was going to record an acoustic version of Throwing Stones for the Occupy Wall Street movement. What
Wow.
a cool. But no, I've never gotten to work with Bob, and I'm dying to. I would love to work with Joe Russo. I've respected him as a drummer, like, and I've worked with Warren Haynes on a bunch of levels already. And there's him and Jorgen, man. I love Jorgen Carlson of Government Mule. His bass stuff, Mad Apps. I mean, I love all of Government Mule, but like I would love to collaborate with any of those guys. But yeah, I think that's about it. I'm sure there's more. Trey Anastasio, come on, Trey, hear me. Come play guitar, be my backup guitar player.
Trey watches us.
Amazing. Cool.
Well, now that we've said it out loud, then it's out there. Like, it's officially out there.
The universe has it in its hands, and it's getting together and doing the good stuff for us now.
What this past weekend, did you have something? Was there a yoga fest, or is that coming up in the future?
Yeah, that was like last weekend. We had so I don't know if you guys have heard of the Clearwater Festival, the Hudson River Sloop Clearwater Festival. It was a little known folk artist named Pete Seeger created it. And I had produced the one back in 2019, which was their last one ever. I produced some folk festivals on Long Island ever since then. And I just love producing shows. You can't really see too much. Let me take this around a little bit. But when I first created a yoga studio, I was like, this can't look like a yoga studio. This kind of has to be like a yoga festival. So you could see on the ceiling here, like everything looks very bright and everything's very yoga like very festive and bright and exciting. And that's kind of like when I first opened the studio, I thought of Mountain Jam. It was definitely modeled. The idea and the name was modeled off of Mountain Jam and Summer Jam, Russell Simmons stuff that he did. And I wanted this place to be like an exciting. I wanted my yoga studio to be something that gets people excited. And that's not a word we ever use in yoga. We actually try to keep people calmer generally, right? But I want people to get excited about the idea of yoga, and I want people to celebrate yoga. So naturally, I kind of modeled this around music festivals, and then like within a year and a half, I was like, within a year of opening, I'm like, I gotta have a yoga festival, and then I put together my first own Long Island yoga festival, and it was with some amazing musicians and world famous yogis came, which I can't even believe who came here. Like this guy, Rodney Yee, who's like incredible. He's been known in yoga for like the past 40 years. What a master. Alan Finger, Sarah Platt, Matt Giordano, Nina Rao, who like tears with Krishna Das, with tours with him and manages him. So it was amazing. It was yoga. It was music. It was 3 days. Quite the experience. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
What kind of yoga do you teach?
I personally teach Vinyasa yoga. I also teach slow flow yoga. I teach yin yoga, and I teach Ashtanga yoga. At our studio, though, we teach about 10 other styles as well. I have 10 other teachers. Everybody teaches differently. However they need to jam, we let them jam. That's kind of how we look at everything.
Wow. Amazing. Which part of Long Island are you on?
We're in Glen Cove, Long Island at 192 Glen Street. Come on down.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of take a second and think about, for you, do you have any shows coming up that you're super excited about? Like what's going on for your calendar?
My calendar is super light for once. It's super gentle right now. I'm not touring. I have no plans to tour whatsoever. This was definitely not the type of track that I was going to say, yeah, I'm going to tour on a track. I don't even know if that's possible. I do hope that, I do hope that, artists who come around here want me to come up on stage and play a song or a few. I hope I get called up sometime. I hope I can play live sometimes. But right now, I just produced this yoga festival that I've been working a year on. I just released this song that I've been working 3.5 years on. I am so grateful that there's like a lull in my schedule for like the next 6 weeks. And I'm going to be able to relax a little bit.
Good for you.
Are you going to Mondegreen?
Are we going to what?
Are you going to Mondegreen?
I'm not sure what that is. What is that?
The Fish Festival in Delaware in a couple weeks?
No. I didn't know that was the name of it. We were talking about it 2 days ago, though. No, I want to, but we're going on a family vacation the day after it's over. Now I want you to know I begged my wife anyway. I said, okay, we're going to Greece and Turkey the day after it's over. I'm like, but it's like 12 hours after. I'll be able to rest for 12 hours. I don't know why we can't go. She's looking at me like I'm insane.
You have to
ask. Had to ask.
You got to just at least, because then it's like, all right, well, I feel better. I asked,
Yes. Yeah. Have you guys done the Sphere yet?
No. I'm actually going to be there this weekend, though.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I can't wait to try that.
Yeah.
I went to Vegas for 18 hours once, and I think that I was there 16 hours too long.
I hear you. I understand that.
Yeah.
That's not my scene for sure.
It'll be interesting. And I've really never spent any considerable time there either. So it'll be a bunch of firsts. I think, though, refreshingly, the forecast now has gone down from about 119 degrees to maybe like 108. So I think
you should think about bringing some like cooler clothes. I mean, hotter, like jacket or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting one.
Jeans.
I heard that the Sphere itself is cold inside. Like when you go in there,
really? It's so hot there. I can't even. I was there one time during the summer, and like I was just walking around outside, and I found myself like every half an hour I had to stop for another drink. I was sweating that much. I was just drenched.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's drier. It's a little bit, at least it's drier than you said. You came.
It's a dry heat.
Right? It's drier than the East Coast stuff.
There's some truth to that, though. Now that I've lived in Colorado for 7 years, it is true, because I lived in the Southeast too for a minute, and that's like wretched. But we don't have to go into my history of North Carolina.
Let me ask you
about. We can talk about the Tar Heels. I'm okay with this.
Okay, nice. All right, I respect that.
Let me ask you another yoga question. Is it possible to have punk rock yoga?
Oh, yeah. So there is some reviews on us. There is some. I think that's even an article somewhere. It's like it's the only yoga studio that you'll ever walk to that in the same playlist you'll hear, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Eminem, Metallica, Thievery Corporation, and Michael Franti, all in one playlist. So we do that here. But what I laughed at wasn't even that thought when you brought that up. I actually laughed at the thought about one of the people who trained me in yoga. His name is Nick Vishanka. And Nick's an amazing yogi. And he plays heavy metal in his classes. He plays like heavy metal or thrash metal in some of his classes.
Nice. I could totally see it.
At Buddha Jams is all about the jam. Like we're just about, you know, whatever you got, bring it in, and like we could jam with it. You know.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we were able to chat with you. Jay, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you would really like to make sure we get into, whether it's music related or not?
Yeah, that it's love is always music related, right? So yeah, I mean just if I could just leave you with one thing, and that's that, you know, we're all dealing with so much out there. It's such I'm looking out my window right now and it's like, whoo, the world out there is so rough. There's so much pressure that's coming from out there, from every corner of the world, from your family to your job to fuck, excuse me, can I curse here? Politics. Okay, cool. Fucking politics. Racism, anti-Semitism, like, oh my God, it's got to stop. It's got like, I don't turn on the TV anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't deal with what's on there anymore. It's just too much. I can't. All I'm saying is turn it off once a day. And what I mean by turn it off, I mean everything out here, everything that you see out here, turn it off once a day and just please, even if it's just for a minute or two, please just breathe. Just watch your breath, close your eyes, feel the tickle of your breath at the tip of your nose, follow it inside, and just keep breathing in and out. Just give it a minute or two and watch the magic. If you do that every day, watch the magic that starts to develop and unfold in your life. It's really special. And that's kind of what I want to leave everyone with. You get to connect to this beautiful, gorgeous, ever-flowing world of love that will flood into your life if you just connect with what's inside.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, thank you so much, because you know what, I know I need those reminders, honestly. Sometimes it's hard to remember to do something like that for yourself, you know, during the day. Last thing I just want to ask you is, what is the best way for people to support you? Where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Jason Samel. Follow me on Instagram at, I think I'm also at Jason-Samel there, or just, oh no, Jason Samel 1. Buddha Jams Yoga on Instagram. Please follow us. Facebook, follow all our socials. Buddha Jams Yoga, buddhajams.com, jasonsamel.com. I have a YouTube channel, Jason Samel. Yeah, check me out. Follow me. I do a lot of stuff anywhere from, and it's all on my YouTube channel too. A lot of music activism. I put everything I do out there. So please check me out, follow. And if you love what I do, please share it. I need you so desperately to. Love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. This has been awesome. Hang on for just 1 second.
All right. Okay. Yeah, remember everybody, like, subscribe, follow us on our social medias. We're going to put all kinds of links down in the bottom so we can find anything that you need about Jason. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you soon.